Now, in the last video, we built all of these curves using SOLIDWORKS 2013's new conic functionality in the Sketcher, but I'm going to hide these. And let's do it again, this time for those of you that are still using 2012 or earlier. And then, since we'll have them both in the same document, we can talk about why each of them, why one is better than another. I'm going to go to my front plane and create a new sketch. And this time, I'm going to use the Universal Spline tool, and this is available in every version of SOLIDWORKS. I'll click this corner and that corner. Importantly, just 2 points. Hit Escape to drop the tool. And now this is just going to be a really clickety-clackety process. There's just a lot of clicks we have to do to get this done. All right, so let's take this. I'm going to right-click on this diamond for this handle and then make that horizontal. And on the other side, I'm going to right-click the diamond and make that vertical. All right, so those are both set. We can drag to change the magnitude of those guys, however we want. I then need to right-click this curve and go down to Add Curvature Control. This is important because otherwise our surface won't necessarily be clean at the center. So we need to add curvature controls to both sides. Add a curvature control and snap it all the way at the end. So we now have a control at both ends. Okay, hit Escape to drop the tool. Select one of those controls, and over in the properties for that curvature control is a property called Radius of Curvature. Now I'm going to select that and set it to 0. That is the critical part here. I'm going to select the other side, then set its radius of curvature to 0. If you don't do that, then you run the risk of tangency falling apart when you go across the midplanes, when we mirror these surfaces across. So now we can adjust these magnitudes until we like the way the curvature looks, and we can do that numerically, but it's kind of annoying to do. So I'm not going to bother with it. We'll just exit this sketch. Now we're going to have to do all that clickety-clackety goodness to do each one of these curves. Okay, so let's go to our top plane and run through this in fast motion. We'll grab our spline, go to each end, click the spline, right-click this guy, make it vertical, right-click this guy, make it horizontal, and then right-click and add curvature, and right-click and add curvature control, and then select the curvature control and set its curvature to 0, and select the other curvature control and set its curvature to 0, and then adjust the magnitude until we like the way that it looks. Right? That's a whole bunch of nonsense, isn't it? Well, that's what you got to do, folks. SOLIDWORKS 2013, it's going to make your life easier. All right, let's do this one last one. You know how to do it, so you can. We'll just skip this part. All right, so now I've built my third curve. I have all 3 curves in place, and let's talk really quickly about why one of these methods might be better than the other. So we have now 2 sets of curves here. Let's show these. Now to make this a little bit easier to see, I'm going to select the conic sketches we created and go up to Edit, Appearance, and then down to Sketch/Curve Color. And then I can set those to a color. I'm going to set them to bright green and hit OK. And then I'll select my splines here and go up to Edit, Appearance, and Sketch Curve Color for those as well. And I'm going to set those to pink. Okay, so now our splines are in pink and the conics are in green. I know those are garish, crazy colors, but hopefully at least you'll be able to see what's going on now. Okay, now I'm going to make a kind of a radical change to this design. Right? I'm going to take that original sketch and double-click it to see its dimensions out here. I'm going to take this 39 millimeter dimension and change that down to, say, 20 millimeters, and then click the Update button at the top of the screen. It's going to update my model, and look at this. Look at the difference in these sketches. Now, my conics look perfect. They look exactly the way that they used to. They've adjusted perfectly. Whereas those splines have now OG'd. That's spelled O-G-E-E. It's a word, and it means there are inflections in my spline. In fact, to make that a little bit more obvious, I'm going to right-click this spline and go down to Show Curvature Combs. And I'll just change let's turn that down a little bit so it's not quite so big. Hit OK. And actually, I'll just right-click this conic and do the same thing. I'll show the curvature combs for that. Hit OK. And look at the curvature combs here. You see that the curvature combs for our conic are perfect. They are still perfect. Whereas the curvature combs for our spline have inflected. They're going the opposite direction on one part of the curve. And that's the problem with splines, or one of the many problems with splines. And that is that they can inflect on you. They can change. So if you are making adjustments to your model, like dimensional changes, there's no guaranteeing that a spline is going to stay convex the way that you want it to. Whereas a conic, no matter what you do to it, is always going to stay perfectly clean and convex. So that's a really important point. Now, splines do have their advantages. There are situations where you want an OG in your surface. You want an inflection, and in those cases, you have to use a spline. Also, splines can be theoretically much smoother than conics. Visually smoother, that is. But you definitely need to know what you're doing to do that, and it is going to take a lot of futzing around to get there. Okay, so if you have access to SOLIDWORKS 2013 and you're building something like this, I'm going to highly recommend using the conic method.